Hello everyone, so I'm currently recording this in school, so I'm hoping that there are no announcements or anything that come in the way, but if you do hear something, that's why. So we're going to be getting into our new unit, which is World War I and the Roaring Twenties. For World War I, it took place in Europe, and we have to know how it happened in Europe for us to understand why the United States got involved in it. So for your write into the day, I'm asking you to think about what this quote means and to describe what you're seeing in the picture. And some of you, I'm sure, know a lot about World War I, so you might be able to know exact terms and vocabulary. However, if you don't, that's okay. You can say, describe the things that you would see, like as if you were describing a document to me. This is a quote from America, A History of Our Nation, and it talks about this person that an American that went to Europe and then came home and reported his findings to the president at the time, President Woodrow Wilson. So it says, in the spring of 1914, an American named Colonel Edward House was on a visit to Europe. He quickly saw that the stories that were being told about Europe were true. Tensions among the nations were threatening the peace of Europe. Colonel House told his close friend, U.S. President Woodrow Wilson, that the situation is extraordinary. A kind of madness was gripping the continent. There is too much hatred, too many jealousies. Not long after Colonel House returned to the U.S., Europe exploded into war. So I want you to think about what Colonel House thinks is the main causes of the war, and then we're going to look at the actual causes. What tensions existed in Europe in 1914? There were many. We just read a quote where somebody was talking about madness and hatred and jealousy. So why was there so much tension in Europe? The first of the long-term causes is militarism. And militarism is the policy of building up strong armed forces to prepare for war. Strong militaries were necessary to protect national interests at home and abroad. Example, a naval race between Germany and Britain. So militarism is when people are building up their militaries to make them as big and as powerful as possible. And this can cause other nations to feel nervous and then start building up their militaries as well. So here's an example. We see two ships that were created as a result of trying to build up the military, in this case the Navy, and these are warships. They're huge, and they're also partially underwater as well, and they caused a lot of damage during World War I. Here's a chart to give you an idea of how much countries were spending on military and weaponry. So in 1904 we see 176.6 million, but the year before the war, 1913, it's all the way up to 286.3 million. So these people in Europe are spending a ridiculous amount of money to build up as big of a military as possible. So that means that a lot of people aren't going to be trusting each other, which is a problem. Another cause is alliance systems. Alliances are countries that agree to support each other in case of war. So alliances are typically like friendships. In World War I, we're going to talk about two different groups of alliances. The first is called the Triple Alliance, which is when Germany formed an alliance with Austria-Hungary and Italy. So they are considered, in this case, I don't want to say the bad guys, but they're the ones that the United States was fighting against. They're the ones that don't have a democracy. So these were the people that wanted to kind of take over everything and were really struggling for like a German nationalism and Austria-Hungary nationalism, Italian nationalism. Everybody is feeling like proud in their country and they're trying to expand their borders. On the other side, we have the Triple Entente, which consisted of France, Britain, and Russia, and they also pledged to come to one another's aid if attacked. A good way to remember this is Entente is a French word, so you can remember that France and Entente, they go together. So basically, anytime that there's a conflict between two people, other people would quickly get involved. So if Germany got mad at France about something, then Britain and Russia would back France up, Austria, Hungary, and Italy would back Germany up. So there's a really good political cartoon that I'm going to be showing you tomorrow. I didn't realize I didn't put it in the slide. That shows like everybody's like trying to back each other up, but this ultimately leads to a lot of problems because if you have a friend and they do something wrong, then you still might stick up for them because they're your friend, but then the person that is the victim, they'll be really upset and you'll know that what they did was wrong. So it can get really muddy and confusing. So just to show you the Triple Entente, Great Britain, France, and Russia, and then the Triple Alliance, Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. Key leaders in the war, there's Kaiser Wilhelm II from Germany, King George V from England, and Tsar Nicholas II from Russia. These are the three key people in Europe. We're not going to talk too much about them because we're more focused in this class on U.S. history and how the United States relates to this. Another cause is imperialism, which we just talked about with the United States being an imperial power. Imperialism is when a powerful country takes political or economic control of weaker countries. So European countries competed for power in the same regions. So we saw, like, for example, the United States set up the open door policy in China and said, hey, we can trade equally now with China. Also in Europe, they carved up Africa. They wanted different parts of Africa. They wanted different parts of the Middle East so that they could have access to new raw materials. And a lot of imperial powers would fight with each other over who earned what territory. This is a very powerful and popular political cartoon about the division of China, and we can see here that the Chinese person in the back is very upset about this. Meanwhile, we have the Germans kind of fighting with the English over who gets what section of China. If you look at this map, all of the different colors represent different imperial powers, and you can see what countries owned what part of the country of China, and Manchuria and Korea and Japan and Taiwan. This shows Africa and who owned what part of Africa, just to give you an idea of how Europe was really taking over the world at this point. And this is a very popular political cartoon as well, just talking about a European person standing on top of Africa, taking it over. The final main long-term cause is nationalism. And nationalism is when you have excessive pride in your country. So the interests of your nation should come before others, and this created rivalries, mistrust, and hatred between countries. So when you feel so proud of your country that if somebody else talks badly against you, you're willing to fight for it. This is very similar to what we saw in the Spanish-American War when Dupuy de Lome said that our President McKinley, was weak. We immediately go to war against Spain. In this case, in France, we had a war of France versus Germany, where the French were really proud, the Germans were really proud, and that leads to the Franco-Prussian War. And then we have a war with Russia versus Austria-Hungary. Again, two people who were very, very proud of their nations, and they wanted to create their own ethnic state. The Balkans are considered the power keg of Europe. Now, the Balkans are in the east of Europe, and it's kind of difficult to show on this map because you can't see the rest of Europe from here, but this gives you an idea of all of the different ethnic groups or groups of people that are living all spread throughout this area in Eastern Europe. So, and each of these ethnic groups wanted their own place to live and where they could just be part of their own ethnicity. Like the Bulgarians wanted to be in Bulgaria, the Romanians wanted to be in Romania, the Croats wanted to be in Croatia, so on and so forth. So everybody wanted to set up their own individual, country where they could practice their own ethnic beliefs. Additionally, we have places like Austria-Hungary where there were multiple different types of people living in one empire. And this is actually going to cause a lot of tension within Austria-Hungary because, again, people don't want to live with other people who are not part of the same ethnic group. They want to live with their own ethnic group. The Germans want to live with the Germans. Hungarians want to live in Hungary. Romanians want to live in Romania, so on and so forth. So ultimately, Europe turns into what is called a powder keg, which a powder keg is a barrel filled with gunpowder. And between all of the different problems that we saw, it's going to ultimately lead to war. So a powder keg is when it's a barrel filled with gunpowder. If something small ignites it, it explodes. The immediate cause of the war, this is known as the spark that starts the war. So all of the other things, they're MAIN, they're the main causes, they're the long-term causes. The immediate spark of the war is that Archduke Franz Ferdinand, who was heir to the Austria-Hungarian throne, was assassinated or killed by Serbian nationalist Gavrilo Princip. And Gavrilo Princip, he wanted Austria-Hungary to free the Slavic provinces so that they could be combined into a greater Serbia. So he wanted to create a Serbian national state. And he was really angry with this, so he assassinates Archduke Franz Ferdinand. But if you remember the alliances, this is going to lead to friends backing up friends, and which ultimately leads to war. So here is an example of the timeline. So June 28th, Franz Ferdinand of Austria is assassinated. July 28th, Austria-Hungary declares war on Serbia. July 31st, Russia mobilizes armed forces. That basically means that they're preparing for war. August 1st, Germany declares war on Russia. Then August 3rd, Germany declares war on France. August 4th, Germany invades neutral Belgium. Neutral meaning that they're not on either side. August 4th, Great Britain declares war on Germany because they invaded Belgium. So everybody is just saying, oh, you're invading my friend, you're fighting against my friend, I'm now joining the war. So all of this stuff instantly happens after Archduke Franz Ferdinand is assassinated. Now, how the United States responded. In time, more than 20 countries became involved in the fighting, and President Woodrow Wilson issued a proclamation of strict and impartial neutrality. So he said the United States is not going to get involved in World War I because we are going to be neutral, we will help both sides, and we'll make a lot of money doing it. And he said we didn't need to be involved in European affairs. So at this point, the United States has to decide. Are we going to stay neutral, or are we going to get involved? And if we do get involved, what side should we be on? The side with the triple ally powers, or the side with the triple entente? That is all you need to know for the causes of World War I. You'll also notice that I put on the bottom of your note sheet where it says remember MAIN, M-A-I-N. This is an acronym to help you remember the 4 main causes of World War I. So M, militarism, A, alliances, I, imperialism, N, nationalism.